Hello, good people, but now you know the deal. If the camera angle is off, it's not by design. I'm blind and it comes with the territory. I've had more reflection on that Trump and Ramaphosa meeting. Truth be told, it was bad. It was terrible on many, many fronts. And we just have to keep on pulling back those layers to really grasp the extent that the meeting was an unmitigated disaster. On a political level, on a social level, and also on a state level. It was just ugly. But maybe it's the type of ugliness that is warranted. It's one of those sobering moments. Because it makes you realize exactly where things currently stand in the country. In fact, where you are as an individual. How insignificant you truly are. You just don't matter, particularly if you're poor and black. It's got nothing to do with political allegiance. It's got nothing to do with ideology. It's simply about humanity. It's about freedoms, which apparently South Africans do not have. Unless, of course, you are part of the elite. And I mean this for everyone. Right? This is even across racial lines. South Africa does not have sovereignty. Our statehood is not acknowledged. And our nationhood, well, that has been in question for a long, long time. And perhaps this moment calls for a reflection on that, given how vastly different we view that meeting. You see, growing up, my mom, she used to tell me about her upbringing, particularly in apartheid. And one of her significant traumas, it wasn't just a once-off occurrence, right? Several times, is how her father used to be condescended to and belittled by white boys. Right? Imagine a grown man being treated in a foul way by someone who is same age as his kids, if not younger. And this would happen in various contexts, right? They would be in a car, traveling somewhere, and he would make the mistake of overtaking a vehicle that so happens to be driven by a white man. Then he would be stopped, and then he'd be told, "Wat dink jy, boy? Who are you to overtake bars?" And he would be arrested. Why? Because he would exercise his autonomy and agency. And the thing is about those days, it was the stark reality of how apartheid operates, how colonialism operates. You had a true sense of what racism is. And then, of course, comes this fake post-94 era, an era of euphoria and apparent freedom and joys, right? And some of us attend white schools. And in these schools, we're subjected to actions and treatment that you intuitively just know that it's bad, man. This is not how things should be. Yeah, fine, you're a kid, you can't articulate it, you end up rebelling on some level because you just sense the injustice of it all. You know, you are fingered, you are othered, you are talked about in obscene ways. Even your punishment is different from that of your white counterparts. And so when I was thinking about the whole Lamula thing, I was like, yo, boy, like psychologically, it just hit a nerve, right? It's like, yo, how Rupert was treating Lamula, despite me having no respect for Lamula, it just hit hard. It was like, that's rough. That's rough. I doubt that Lamula sees it that way, you know. He seeks to please, and he's on his grind. He just does not give a damn. Has no self-respect. But that's besides the point. I mean, to be referred to in the third person, to be patted even though you are symbolically given authority, treated like a boy, a garden boy, on an international stage, that's gotta sting, yo. No matter the ka-ching that comes in, it's just gotta sting. To have so-called sports stars talk about foreign affairs, about your country and issues that are germane to your people, simply because they are white, it's gotta hurt. Well, certainly it hit many people who were watching it. And this is despite what people may want to say about it was a successful meeting. You see, what that meeting reveals is indeed that South Africa does not make its own decisions. That you gotta jig and jive to be able to say that I'm serving my people. It was a true moment of there are rules for them and rules for us. So, one of the things that I often talked about ever since that meeting, and perhaps even prior to the meeting, is how successful the narrative has been won regarding the misinformation, disinformation, the lies that are told by Trump and his people, right? About the whole white genocide, mass killing, etc., being a falsehood. You see, it's my belief that that was a ploy. Y'all gotta read The Art of War and understand what's truly going on here. The American intelligence community knew that that's a lie. These people are tapped in all the time. So the White House knew that it's an untruth. But you see, they've been building up to this moment. Trump has been saying that he takes an issue with the BRICS bloc. He takes an issue with countries in Africa claiming some type of independence and people talking about de-dollarization. And the white genocide lie was a pretext to be used so to get the South Africans, the quote-unquote president, I don't want to use these terms anymore, they just become meaningless to me, not because I truly believed in the essence, but I was using them out of deference, but nah, I think it's high time that we just drop the act. But anyway, he basically bullies them into a position by using a lie. Note, this is quite important, a lie. How many of y'all have had legitimate concerns about any other social issue in South Africa, but no one would actually care to listen to you in authority? This would not be a lie. It's either a service delivery issue or a health issue, an education issue, and you'd be dismissed. Fine, you're not as important. We get it. But you have an authority of a country using a lie to bully and to belittle an entire nation, an entire state, an entire country. And the response to that is, we need to get to him and we need to plead. We need to get to a bully, we need to get to the person that's condescending, and we need to plead. That is wild. And that's exactly what happened. The South African representative went there to acquiesce, to accept that there needs to be new terms. And whether inadvertently or not, it has shifted the balance of power. Time will tell to what extent. Time will tell whether another chess move is on the cards or not. Right? Well, we don't know how the other side is going to respond and what the final outcomes will be in the months or years ahead. But we know certainly that at this point in time, that move has indicated that, Massa, you are correct. Who are we to talk about de-dollarization? Who are we to talk about being friends with whomever we choose to be friends with, to trade with whomever we think and believe serves our interest? based on our current needs. We happily disclose that over 600, by the way, I think it's over 660 companies in the US operate in South Africa. And about 22 companies of South Africa, by the way, these are also mostly companies that are owned by the elites who are white, operate in the US. And we see nothing wrong with that picture. A country that is rich with minerals and resources. A country that is rich with land. A country with so much potential. A country that's far better in terms of its wealth than your Burkina Fasos, your Malis, your Nigers. But yet, this is what the outcome is. And we're told is to save jobs. True as that may be, but I think it's more to save the political elite. It would be interesting to see if sleuths and investigative journalists can actually map out relationships between those who are in the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress and these companies. What are their interests? Same goes for the Democratic Alliance. The higher ups are there. What are their relationships to these companies? So, no, there is no victory when it comes to the information warfare. He used it and he won a battle. And it would appear it's an important battle because South Africa is strategic in its positioning in terms of geopolitics and the African continent. Some years ago, it was identified as an anchor state. I believe it's Nigeria, it's Kenya, and one other country in North Africa. Important territories, that was even the terminology used at the time, by which Western countries, particularly the US, can enter Africa, whether it's market or even control its internal dynamics. So, even though the people can speak that truth, and we can advocate about how much this was a lie, point is, your institutions failed you when it counts the most. They were not there. You see, Ramaphosa did not tell his quote-unquote counterpart about the independence of the judiciary, that you and I and others are supposed to respect. He did not tell his quote-unquote counterpart about the Constitution, that you and I and others are supposed to revere. And this was at a point when he just had to say, you know what? Our judges have applied ourselves to this issue of this political rhetoric. And they figured that, you know what? It's more complex than what it seems. And you know, Ramaphosa could have actually even spun his way out of that. He could have actually even lied in a sophisticated way to present himself in a better light to the people back in South Africa. He could have gone further to say, you know what, Mr. President, our courts have pondered and thought long and hard about this issue, and they have decided that, you know what, it's mere political rhetoric. But in light of your grievance, my good sir, this is what I shall do for you. I'm going to instruct Parliament to debate this as a matter of hate speech and perhaps something that we should not and no longer entertain in our political discourse. He couldn't even do that. Knowing very well that there could have been backlash and so on, but it could have been manageable. You know, he has the support of the media. Journalists would have spun that for him. But he couldn't do that. He couldn't even protect people that he says that he represents at a crucial moment in time. That's how wild this is. You see, the thing about that meeting, I think it's laid bare for all to see that South Africa does not have sovereignty. And I see us using this term quite loosely. And at the heart of sovereignty is essentially to say that you are in control, right? You have clear autonomy and agency over your rules, your laws, your morals as a people, as a country. You can exercise this internally, and those externally respect you for it. And they see it. It speaks to statehood. In other words, there's a clear definition of or defining of your territory, your borders, where everybody in the so-called global community recognizes that that patch of land over there has its own people who are thinkers, whom we need to see as peers on this global stage. They decide their own way of life. We may not like it sometimes we may agree with it, but we need to engage with them on the basis of them being humans and being fully and utterly in control of their own destiny. But that meeting did not illustrate that. And yes, the justification is that, you know what, it's diplomacy. No, diplomacy is not about being obsequious. And we need to remove ourselves from that way of thinking. Diplomacy is about tactics. Did Ramaphosa have to talk down to Trump? No, he certainly didn't have to do that. But you see, there are ways and there are ways. But that meeting basically tells everyone that we're done with pretending here, boys. Y'all and your people gotta know who's massa. And the thing is, based on Ramaphosa's actions in the last 7 years or so, it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt to say that he was just simply doing what he had to do. His motives are questionable because you might find that, you know what, he just enjoys doing this. He believes in it. That's his appreciation of how things should be. And now, under the guise of it being pragmatic, it's being held aloft as exemplary, but it's not. Because it speaks to the psyche of a people. Tactically, for example, right? Ramaphosa could have made declaratory statements. Mr. President Trump, there is no white genocide in South Africa. Trump, no, there is. I got proof of it. No, Mr. President, there isn't. But however, perhaps you can ask the people around me about it. Do you all recognize the tone of that, if that was the approach? Ramaphosa establishes his authority when he says that, and whoever speaks after him needs to be in lockstep. Socially, it looks good. Psychologically, it goes down quite well. It doesn't make him look like an underling to your Ruperts, your any else's, your Horsens, Trump, and whoever else is there. Because he would have established the narrative. He would have established the line of march. And then it's about the rest of them coming in to finish up. But that's not how it was. And these are the details and that, your African National Congress just does not get. It's like, play your sellout game. It's good and well for you. But be sophisticated in terms of how you deliver it. And the final thing I want to talk about, safe to say, like, the ANC is dead, right? There's just no more ANC. Sad but true, there just isn't. And I think if you understand the natural order of things, you come to accept that everything has it has its own time and place, starting point and an ending point. But boy, this has been a mighty fall. So you'll go back to your homes, your villages, your townships, your families, your communities, and just tell them, this thing is no more. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. I think theoretically we were talking about it being gone, but yesterday, in terms of that meeting being an exhibition, it's definitely gone, right? So, South Africa truly has a nationhood problem. And if we understand nationhood in terms of it being a people who have a culture and common values and principles, then you'd understand. And I say this because that disastrous meeting we came from it with two main, vastly different views. One side saying it was great, and the other feeling dejected. Because they knew that this is the hardcore truth, and they knew that this is the reality. They knew that, you know what, the past 30 odd years have been nothing but a lie. Right? Nothing but a lie. But here's the thing about the problem with it. It's not that necessarily we have a difference in opinion. Those things happen in any community. The problem is that it reflects the fractured character of our society. We can't be looking at the same event and draw vastly different conclusions. Given how dehumanizing, belittling, racist, and incredibly absurd that meeting was. That's my perspective, right? Someone else will tell you it was diplomatic, it was mastery, and so on and so forth. Despite the psychological trauma underpinnings, the significance of the economic position of it all, in terms of how it, where it places South Africa. And this is why it's crazy. It's like watching a child's throat being slit. And then some of us are like, this baby was making too much noise. It's kind of understandable, you know. I mean, what else could you do in that position, guys? And others are like, horrified, right? They're like, oh my word. In a state of shock and bewilderment, like, that is a terrible, horrible thing to happen. It cannot be. It's like watching a woman being raped. And then some of us are like, I bet she was asking for it. Did you see what she was wearing, bro? Yeah, I know. I know, Magajan. Well, what can we say? And then there are others are like, no. These are extreme examples that I'm using to illustrate that not only do we view things differently, but our morals and our values and principles are so contradictory, so different from each other, that we need to call into question our nationhood. And here's the interesting part. That minority group that's been making noise about what's going on, they're fighting for their values and principles. And interestingly enough, what we're going to see happening more and more in South Africa is the question of, is this project viable in its current state? should we become a nation of nations? Is that something that's workable, that we can do, that can function in this new world that we find ourselves in? Right? So do we have a unitary system of governance like your China, for example? Or do we have a middle ground like your United States? Right? They have a federation, but they also have states that have a great degree of autonomy and agency. Or are we like a Russia, for example, right? With governors and different regions, similar to America. But anyway, the point is, perhaps it's time to discuss this, because that meeting calls into question too many things. See, that meeting should be used as a prop, should be used as a resource by your academics and your teachers to illustrate these concepts and to teach about politics. Various theories. And it's one for the ages. It's one that we can refer to in 50 years' time, 100 years' time even, perhaps, because it's that significant. It's that telling. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree?